We're going to end up discussing the report system in Marvel Rivals and how it's making the game a better experience. But first, we're going to look at matchmaking systems in games and why matchmaking can sometimes lead to frustration, which I believe is the main trigger of bannable behaviors. The matchmaker is how the game system tries to find balanced teams of people to play against each other from the pool of more than 100,000 people online, depending on which game you're playing, so that the next round of your current favorite team game isn't a complete one-sided stomp. We all know they still happen anyway, but it's about doing the best they can. The heavyweight champ of MMR systems is the chess ELO system, where your score goes up or down based on whether or not you win or lose respectively. This is what's known as a zero-sum approach, because the points lost and points gained are the same amount. They cancel out to zero. The amount of points is determined by a formula which gives fewer points when a player with a higher score wins over a lower scored player, and inversely will give more points to a lower score player who manages to win over someone with a higher score. This system also transfers a small number of points to a lower score player who manages to bring a higher score player to a draw. People joke about Overwatch having an awful system.
No, thank you.
I haven't played in years, but I do remember frustration being the main emotion associated with my Overwatch experience. From a Game Tree article by Gavin Dubrovin, Overwatch 2 has a hidden matchmaking rating that determines your skill level separate from your visible skill rating. Matchmaking tries to keep your win rate at 50% regardless of skill. Matches are often unbalanced, with one team dominating the other, and I remember team boosting being more or less required to get to the highest ranks.
It sucks.
League and several other games use True Skill 2, which was developed by Microsoft as an iteration on the original True Skill, which was like ELO but for multiplayer games. To me, the most important modifications True Skill makes are these.
Nice.
The first being that a player's latent skill is inferred from their individual statistics, such as kill and death counts, in addition to team and win-loss. So KDA, heals, blocks, time on point, whatever the objective of the game is, like planting the bomb or rescuing hostages, all of those will increase a player's skill level. When a player is part of a squad, their performance is assumed to be better than normal. Team boosting of Overwatch would have been dampened a little bit with the True Skill 2 algorithm. Dota 2 and CSGO share a great system called Glyco 2, and if you look up what the EM algorithm is, you'll find tucked away in a footnote, which means that you will have a good game experience, and the theory behind it is still largely not understood, which is very much like the Quake magic number in that it just works. Dota 2 matches, more often than not, felt fair, and that there was always a chance for a comeback if the team was down. Like the win was always possible. Glyco 2 manages to take into consideration many extremely important ideas like variability of individual performances, the impacts of unexpected margins of error, and the inherent imperfectness of trying to match up the equivalent of two rivers of shifting volumes of current, so to end up with results that actually work as an engineering. Marvel Rivals seems to have a system based on getting you hooked for as long as possible. Engagement-based optimization means that if you do exceptionally in a few games, eventually you will be put into a team where you're expected to do about 90% of the heavy lifting. One of your healers will be doing 1/2 or 1/3 of the healing compared to all of the others. Your DPS simply won't be hitting any shots.
Fortunately, the bullets missed every vital organ.
The tank will just wander into the enemy backline, leaving everyone else exposed.
Sayonara!
In order to lessen the impacts of matches like these, Rivals has implemented a feature called Chrono Shield, which stops you from losing a rank after a series of losses, so hopefully you're not getting tilted and getting more frustrated. The shield has to charge up from losses, so if you're in an absolute losing streak, it's probably better to take a break and come back, rather than hope the game will give you a fair shake.
I can absorb your bioenergy and channel it right back.
But if you're sitting 50-50, then you'll have a single ratchet stop to keep you from dropping down a rung, meaning if you're able to jump a rank, it is at least a little bit protected while you adjust to what is hopefully a more intense matchup.
It is protected by an energy shield.
It needs to be said again that it is one ratchet stop. After you hit the shield, it's gone, and it has to recharge.
Shield's failing.
So if you're starting to tilt, that's your signal to take a break and come back ready to win.
Creo que ahora meditaré en mi oratorio.
A commenter said that they were one win away from GM and caught a loss streak, which brought them all the way down to platinum. If that was me, I'd quit the game for a week. But before, I'd have done something other than ride that streak all the way back down. According to the little notification, Plat 3 is higher than about 65% of the server region. There's no single pick that puts people at the top of the leaderboard, but people who play healer often are what I see the most, followed by tanks and then DPS. Now, to talk about the serious stuff, you shouldn't waste people's time. We only have so many minutes every day.
This is my serious face.
Here is where I believe that most people likely to be triggered into bannable behavior get frustrated.
Something did trigger it.
Because the MMR system does have a little bit of a dark side.
Everybody has a dark side.
There are games where I don't have as much fun simply because I'm able to turn up on the payload and get through 90% of the map doing nothing. Or as a tank, I can just let the payload push me along the route without having to worry for 75% of the time. On healer, you find yourself wondering, is my heal partner just that good, or is my team literally taking no damage?
I am driving a Bronson.
I want to be engaged in the match. I don't want to be handed a win, and I don't want anyone to have to be forced into a loss because they can't win a 6v5 due to the Grand Canyon of a skill gap in the teams which got slapped together.
Well done, mate. Great teamwork. Great teamwork. Well done. Good job.
It's games like these where the other team can understandably be frustrated.
I don't have any! Spoken like a person with repressed rage.
No one wants to be guaranteed a loss.
So you get nothing! You lose! Good day, sir!
No one wants their time wasted, and the only way to rebel against a system like that is to refuse to play by the rules. If you're going to lose, then lose as hard as possible seems to be the reaction. And that's a completely understandable reaction, if I'm being honest.
That's understandable.
Yes, it's just a game, but it's still someone's time that's being fully wasted. Maybe it was the one match they were able to play on a lunch break during a 24-hour on-call. Maybe after a 12-hour shift, it was one of the few games that they were going to be able to play before having to go to sleep and start the same up the next day. I know it's just a game, but games are supposed to at least give you the chance to have fun. And a guaranteed loss isn't fun to anyone. Having said all of that, in all honesty, the one thing that keeps me plugging away at games is the fact that the report system works. Because at the end of the day, there is a surrender option.
Drink before it's over, then we can follow it.
And if you're mad enough to throw, you should be mad enough to hit that button and say, fuck this match.
Surrender, you know.
That being said, as well, the Rivals team needs to put a high priority review on matches where teams actually surrender. The data about players is extremely valuable because you can see ones who call for surrender early on, they see the writing on the wall, and then there are other ones who vote against it just to run into the enemy team and die.
You're gonna have to help me with it, Roof.
These two groups need to have something like a red and green flag for matching. You can match up all the people who enjoy just running into a hail of projectiles, energy beams, who have more time respawning than they do fighting, and who aren't really trying to win at the end of the day. Put them all into their own little group, and you can let them run into walls and each other all day long, and they'll be happier for it. Contrast that with a group of people who realize that they're playing 5v6 or 4v6 and don't want to waste time, hoping that they get into a next match which has better luck. Those people who press tab and are aware that the third DPS has 0 kills, 0 assists, they notice the person who seems to be shooting the enemy more than healing their teammate. If those people all get put together in a match, I promise you they will all be focused on trying to win the game, and more than likely, someone will be willing to change out of a role that they are underperforming at. In online team games, my desire to get out of the trenches was mostly due to the fact that the worst behaviorists were often at the lowest rungs of the ladder. Yes, it can be less fun running around in an uncoordinated mass of chaos, but if you're able to play with people who you can tell are actually trying, it makes all the difference. It's when one of those boys decides he's not playing anymore, or worse, decides to feed the enemy team, things truly become unenjoyable because now there's a little imp trying to purposefully ruin everyone's good time. So ideally, moving out of the lowest range will not only lead to better games because the players in those matches are better as well, but because they are less likely to let their emotions affect their gameplay and not partake in things like throwing. Another major thing to take into consideration which has the biggest impact on matchmaking is how big the player base is.
Got a couple of heroes.
Rivals has at least 100,000 players at any time, so there's a massive pool. That shrinks down at the top, of course, but people at the top are always trying. Video games are escapist.
We're all ready to get out of here.
And yeah, when it feels like the only working authority left is Marvel Rivals' report system, I find solace in the fact that they're trying to cultivate an environment devoid of malicious actors.
Hey, look at this specific one. This one's being muted. That's good. I am very glad to see this one because this individual is a Nazi supporter. Shout out to Rivals. No Nazis.
I may have missed a step, but I'm fairly certain that Adolf Hitler was not machine gunned to death in a French cinema.
No, it would have been rather good if he had been.